Happiness. Don't want it. 26:30. Once again, let's address one of the assumptions that keep us confused in a deep way. Even now, it may still sound strange to hear that our purpose in life is not to be happy. Life as a goal of persistence demands that our commitment and attention be devoted to survival, and our perception be designed toward this end. Since mind serves and is generally considered to be the self, this self-mind is where all experience arises from and relates to. Our constant thinking and chatter, our emotions and reactions, our underlying drives and instincts are all designed for and committed to the persistence of this self. Nowhere in any of this is happiness the purpose. 26:31. The devotion of mind and body to the persistence of ourselves is not a devotion to happiness. As a matter of fact, for reasons other than the simple fact that it is not, survival cannot be directed toward happiness. Happiness is not found in the pursuit of happiness. Strange as it may sound, wanting happiness is itself unhappiness. 26:32. We've addressed this contradiction before, and have seen that wanting implies a separation from the thing desired. So wanting to be happy suggests we are not happy. The very act of wanting happiness is an act of suffering. Happiness, on the other hand, is only found in being happy. Although we looked at the relation between survival and happiness in Chapter 16, we were bombarded with so much information that this important point may have slipped through the cracks. Another reason to read and study the book again. A quick review of some of the cultural assumptions related to happiness helps bring it back to mind. 26:33. Since we've noticed that getting something we want frequently brings a sense of pleasure, we reason that attaining everything we want should take pleasure to some ultimate, permanent level. If we think that an abundance of fulfilled desires indeed brings happiness, it makes sense that one of our culturally accepted goals is to get a lot of everything we want. An abundance of love, success, wealth, or even enlightenment. Without investigating it too much, we naturally assume that making everything work out and obtaining all that we want will bring the happiness we seek. 26:34. But we've seen that the fundamental operating principle of self, which dominates our every perception, thought, reaction, emotion, and action, makes this reasoning incomplete and happiness unattainable. Getting or maintaining what we want is a function of survival. It is not the pursuit of happiness, even though it seems like it is. Remember, the mouse is never meant to get the cheese, only to persist by running after it. 26:35. Ordinarily, we tend to focus on acquiring whatever will fulfill our needs. With experience, we notice that our needs are never finally or ultimately fulfilled, no matter what we accomplish. We begin to suspect that our activities and impulses may be cyclical, that they may even somehow cause our distress. This awakening suggests a high degree of sensitivity and alertness on our part, but still we find ourselves unable to step off of the mouse's wheel. 26:36. Unfortunately, our attempt to handle our many needs doesn't come to us like a cheese-chasing metaphor. It comes to us like life. Yet no accumulation of wealth, knowledge, status, or obtained desires will create happiness. We may be happy to have those things, but without being free within, we won't actually be happy. Happiness is as much about being free from ourselves as it is about being free to be ourselves. Try as we might, we still struggle with this as a possibility rather than live within it as a reality. 26:37. By now we know that navigating through the ups and downs of circumstance and the good and bad of our internal states is self-survival in action. If we're upset when something doesn't go our way, how can we be happy? We imagine it is a temporary glitch, and once we fix this problem, we can then be happy. Usually the problem is seen as standing in the way of our happiness, and so must be overcome in order for us to be happy. Yet it does not stand in the way of happiness. It stands in the way of self. This is a big difference. We've confused accomplishing survival, which shows up as getting what we want, with being happy. 26:38. Survival doesn't make us happy. It keeps us alive and persisting as ourselves. In the realm of survival, happiness is an illusion. It's some of the cheese that keeps us running on the wheel, and so is just a tool of survival. Actual happiness is not something to pursue for itself. Happiness is better seen as being happy with whatever you are experiencing. This obviously is not the goal of survival, which must divide experiences into good and bad. Imagine being happy, even though your experience is sad, or upset, or afraid. Imagine being happy without desiring happiness. Imagine being happy regardless of how you feel. This is true happiness. Doesn't sound like what we're used to as happiness, does it? We aren't used to happiness. We're used to victory or defeat, and victory is always temporary. 26:39. Earlier I pointed out that no matter what is accomplished throughout life, no matter how successfully you meet all of life's challenges, the end of the story is that you will fail. You will not survive. All goals accomplished and ordeals overcome will fall away. That may be a depressing and unacceptable fact for itself, but to being, it doesn't matter. If happiness is dependent on successfully realizing your goals, then ultimately there can be no satisfaction. On the other hand, if you are happy working toward your goals, then your happiness is not reserved for attaining them. If you are happy with whatever you experience, then you are happy. Being happy is a matter of being happy, period. As far as being happy goes, your true nature is already happy. Simply let it be. Realize that this is true, and then it is true. It doesn't matter what comes or goes. 26:40. It's an odd thing to say that life is already complete, and that at our source we are already happy. Perhaps happiness is an inherent aspect of being, just as suffering and struggle are inherent aspects of self-survival. Don't fall into the trap, however, of thinking it is either one or the other, happiness versus suffering, but rather as being happy in the struggle and with suffering, and being happy without them as well. 26:41. Strange as it may sound, I love to work with people on the nature of suffering. I experience such joy when I do. I'm often laughing and thoroughly delighted, not as a cruel joke, and not from a lack of empathy, but because the matter is so obviously non-existent that such work focuses my attention on this and puts me in the place where there is only joy. My experience of this seems to arise freshly when sharing it with others. Suffering isn't something to be resisted. It is to be fully experienced and understood. Just as happiness isn't something to be desired, it is also to be fully experienced and understood. Being conscious of the true nature of things elicits joy and humor. I don't know why. Perhaps the miraculousness of it all always blows away the human mind, and freedom within shows whatever is there as unnecessary, and so our long suffering then appears, although not without affection, as rather humorous. Someone may be able to take your life away, but they can't keep you from enjoying it as it is.